everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I am Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where every day at 1 o'clock Pacific time, I say every day, but people think that includes Saturday, Sunday. No, it doesn't include Saturday and Sunday. Monday through Friday, we are doing great FileMaker Livestream training. And we get to learn from you and teach you things and go back and forth. And some days everyone goes to school, and today is one of those days. We're very excited today to be talking about color pickers with Chip Johnston. So Chip is here. Welcome, Chip. How are you?
How you doing?
Good, sir. I'm very excited to be here, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm very excited to be on your channel because, like I was telling Margaret, you make some super content. Always
Well,
been impressed.
it's really people, I understand my name is the one attached to it, but at the end of the day, it's really a much larger team effort. I'm supported by Margaret, by Jacob, by Haley, by Miles, by a bunch of people who really do a great job in helping run RCC, as well as Nick Hunter. But no, it's exciting. So we always try to keep it fun and exciting here. In fact, we have more fun than is legally allowed by law. So to that extent, let's kick this over to Chip. So Chip, what are we doing today? I always ask this question, so I'm going to give you the standard question. Who are you? What are you doing? And why should we give it?
Okay. So my name is Christopher Johnston. I'm happy I earned the title Chip because of my let's call it my designs and FileMaker, or my offering to FileMaker. But I am a FileMaker developer, someone who is a person who has a lot of expertise in programming. It was developed in a very practical way. I wasn't formally trained in college and doing the typical steps, which I understand these days a lot of programmers are some sort of that. And I'm an enthusiast with all things computing and technology, and I really tend to care. And FileMaker is, for me, a big part of that, because it gives you a practical way to implement some of the stuff that you might see with what's available in technology, in terms of using it. Because a lot of people, technology gets thrown at them, and there's multiple things but the question is, what do you do with it that matters to you? And FileMaker always just seems to have a way to do things that relate, real practical stuff. My history with FileMaker is around the same time I was becoming a programmer. My start with computing was relating to digital video. And that made me become some form of a computer expert. But once I got into programming, I really started to develop certain expertise, work with web development, and then, other programming languages like C++. And so FileMaker became a way when I was, let's call it like a freelance developer. I was able to employ myself doing solutions. Like I was explaining to Margaret, I don't do a lot of FileMaker solutions for clients anymore these days. Mostly a lot of stuff that helps our business run a lot better and things like that. But once in a while, I'll even have to maintain something that I've worked on for people. But it's just a fascinating thing. So so as it relates to who I am, I'm very passionate about FileMaker, as I am about a lot of computing concepts, and know the power of it, and want to help and do things that make things better for people, and of course promote my own brand and get things that I'm doing done to the best.
I love it. That's a really great answer, and that's very common. You have a little bit of a creative background, right? Video, and
Yes.
You a musician? You play an instrument of any type?
No, not a musician. Actually, my mother was a piano teacher, by trade, and she studied it her whole life. She went to school, had a master's degree in music related concepts. But no, I actually never played. I've dabbled in the music area because I used to work in the creative sphere relating to video and other technologies.
There we go. That was what I was looking for. That was
right.
There's the common thread with people who
Yes.
love FileMaker is that they have a creative background, but they have to solve a business problem. And FileMaker allows them to solve business problems and also employ their creative spirit to help in that. Because the way you solve the problem in FileMaker can be a bunch of different ways, and you can creatively solve the problem, right?
Right.
And so that's why I'm clapping here for you. It's an awesome story. It's also a very common story with most of the people in the world of FileMaker. So cool. What are we doing today?
We are showing more of my solution to have what I felt a need for, to have it in a more robust way, a color chip. The solution is this one. This color picker, I had gave like a demo that explained a lot of it. And what happened was this was in a FileMaker forum where I had asked, how could you get a color chip that was, in my case, I was looking at certain things that might have been a sort of that, and they were very small. So I was like, what were the ideas around it? So I knew that once normally I go into the FileMaker forum, and the great ideas that great community gives, I always can wrap my brain around it and then try to do more. So that's actually what I did with this. I created a way where, when you click into the color picker, you're able to, pick a color based visually, and it updates right away. And there's a bunch of things to talk about here where this actual chip right here is based on a font, which there's a few things to say. And this one was based on what the community seemed to already know about, which relates to a custom function by, I think his name's Alex Zuev. And it's able to take that container and fill it. So in a lot of ways, there was many things that you could do with that method, but I was thinking about, just being able to have a way where you had something like the text format function, just only color something. And someone made a good suggestion to me. They said you could take a font and you could put it in a field and stretch it. And when I tried it, there was only but so much I could stretch it.
Yeah.
So that, became, and which was still a good idea. It was a great idea. And so what I said was, knowing a bit about font making, I was like, it would be a great idea if you could have a font that was so big, it would just take the format of whatever size you were actually creating.
Okay, I'm excited by this. So yeah, this is exciting. So did you build your own font, or you tweaked the font, or what did you? Okay, I'm really excited. I got to see what this. I'm all excited.
Right.
Here we go.
So
all right,
so
walk us through this. Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah. Right. So what happens is, if I go into layout mode here, you'll see that this is the one based on what the community already had some info about. But this is the one based on the font. If I go over to the inspector, I would I could actually come right here, and with that field selected, if you go down to it, you'll see that it's a font, and it's the font that I made. It's called FM Chip 2, and this one was actually the first attempt, which came out good as well. FM Chip. So FM Chip and FM Chip 2 with two fonts that I created. And just understanding something about fonts. What was interesting is they were relatively easy to create because I only changed one character, and basically what you do now is fill the field with one character. So by only having to fill it one character, it keeps it simple. But if you look at the actual font, I'll show you it on Windows. So if you look at FM,
I was going to ask you, as soon as you deal with font stuff, it's A, installing the fonts, and make sure B, they work on Windows and Mac both, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So both open type and true type fonts don't tend to have a problem. Don't tend to have a problem when you use Mac or Windows. But font stuff can be a little tricky in terms of, in this case, one of the things I had to do was try to get it to overlap a little bit, because I knew that there would be applications where people want to actually use it, and actually maybe because there's still only but so much big of a size that you can get out of the biggest one I made. So I figured that people would want to maybe stack them up to take up a space of color, as opposed to just, have one on the screen. So here is, the font. And if you notice, you see 1, 2, 3, it's showing you all the characters, of the font, but the only one that's actually what I'm using is the 0. You see right there. And so if I close that one, I open the other one, FM Chip 2, and drag that over. And so you see this one, it's same thing. You'll see all the characters, but you see how it's overlapping where you can't even see the 8 and 9 because it's covering them, because I tried to make it jump out of its space and it actually be, available like that. And the reason was, I'll show an example a little bit later of how that stacking can work for, things you're doing. I'm very pleased with the way it came out. Plus, a font is based on math, only like a vector, like they talk about in graphics. So sometimes, things that might be heavy calculation intense might be a problem. This is just something that the computer calculates extremely well, extremely fast. And I got excited about that just from my whole programming understanding. And then I
Okay,
said,
well,
you know,
let me just answer something real quick here for people. So some people may not understand what you just said. So
right.
when you've got graphics on the screen, graphics typically come one of two different ways. Loosely, it could be a bitmap, which is like every pixel, right? Like the idea of 0 and 1, right? Let's talk about black and white, the old Mac pluses and black and white computers, 0 and 1. So each bit has a 0 and 1. And if you're going to draw a picture, you have rows and rows and rows, and you have to have a big pile of numbers that describes that. That's the bitmap. You can call the images can be JPEGs and PNGs, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's this bitmap. A vector font or a vector in general, all it is that you're saying start here at this point and go in this direction and make it so big. And so if you wanted a box, a bitmap box, and this is just basic for those of you who are newer in the world of doing the computer stuff, is that if you have, say we have a box, we'd have to describe every little like every little pinprick or every little dot, and there would be a set of numbers for each dot, or you could draw a box and say, draw me a box that's so far and so big, and the computer just draws it. So it's 4 or 5 numbers to make the vector, as opposed to thousands or millions of dots that you have to contain. So that's the difference when we say vector. So SVG, scalable vector graphics, as you see that people talk about that, doing icons and things with that. That's what he's talking about here. And so fonts, fundamentally, back in the old days, they didn't work this way. Then Adobe, for those of you remember Adobe Type Manager and Type 1 fonts and all this sort of stuff, which goes back to 89 and 90 and 91, 92, which is when I first saw those things, it's a vector graphic. And so they will scale to unlimited size without any additional change of math. The quick brown fox, jumped over the fence or whatever it is, you could make it size 9. It has so much text. You make it size 2000, if you could even do that. It has the same amount of text. It doesn't matter. That's the benefit of the vector font. Some of
Yes.
the yeah. So I'm sorry, I just kind of
that is a super way to break it down. That's a super way to break it down, because it's one of those things that, if you, like you said, if you're newer to computing, you may not understand the value of it, that type of thing. So the other aspect of this that was interesting, and this relates to FileMaker in the concepts of what FileMaker tends to do. It takes different forms of data and works with it, and even combines it with what FileMaker is creating, and then can make powerful stuff. In this case, in a web viewer. So what happens is, so if you notice that when I actually click on the I'm gonna go exit out of layout mode. When I actually click on the area that runs the script trigger that launches the web viewer, because I'll explain more about how this is put together as a solution, so people can have more help with that. But so when this actually launches the area that's the color picker. Okay, yeah. So I think it just might have been something with the resolution and everything, and switching the screens. So what happens is, when you actually go and you drag this around, you're dealing with what's in a web viewer right here. So in that web viewer, you have, the ability to select a color by dragging it or pick one of these swatches. But just know that that's what you're getting. You're getting basically a web page that's loading in that area that sends data to FileMaker. So it doing that, the way that it was best to do it, I found, was to actually create something where FileMaker would write that web page real time with the data that it needs to combine. And some of that data is right here in the global. So what in the globals right here, what you have is, you have the first part of the HTML, and I'll just call it the top. And then if you click away, and you have right here, you have the bottom part of the HTML called the bottom. And in between, you have the data that FileMaker adds to it, which is this hex value. And that's really all you need, because if I show you in a text editor, I'll open it up right here. Yeah, so if I show you the file that it actually is in a text editor, it's just an HTML file, this one right here. So I'm going to open it in my text editor, Notepad++. And if I bring it on the screen, this is actually the file. This is actually the file that it actually creates. So it's just an HTML file, the typical one that would open in a browser. And you could actually open it in a browser and see it. But the piece of data that FileMaker is changing each time is this one. And it actually writes to it so that it can, be real time, open to the color that you're choosing. So each time it writes to it, it's creating a new text file. You'll see that if I go back to it right now. If I click on it right now, see, it says it changed, because each time it's reloading that file, because it's creating the data that FileMaker combines into this HTML file. Now, FileMaker is really powerful at doing that. And the thing about it is sometimes you need a little bit of outside help, like a plugin or something that makes it just work very well, I should say. And so in my case, because I use it, I was using to do that. I was using the Monkey Bread plugin, Monkey Bread software plugin. And if I show you the line, this is where it actually writes the text file that is the creation of that HTML file. So I create a variable, it's called HTML, and then I actually write the file right here.
Okay.
And see, yeah. So I'm using the but so I had gave an example on the when I gave the demonstration that I put in the FileMaker forum. And I also give another option because the Monkey Bread software plugin is something you have to have and buy. But I also gave another option that's like, let's call it a free option. That is the Base Elements plugin. And, and at that time, with the package that's on that, let's call it training or whatever, I give the whole package with both versions. And, I show on the Mac some ways how to configure it as well. And so, so that just became a good way to do it with, because FileMaker has, like with FileMaker, there's like with a lot of programming concepts, a lot of ways to, get things done. But this just became for me the way that I work with a lot of things that, get solved that way in FileMaker. Sometimes even starting from HTML projects that I know, well, this works this way and the data comes from this. So if we move that into FileMaker, FileMaker can add its power to it with the power of, let's say, JavaScript, things like that. And make it really good, make it really great. I mean,
No, absolutely. No, you're doing great. This is great. So the WebViewer, once again, the Monkey Bread, people always ask me about that. Which should I use Monkey Bread or should I use Base Elements? And they at some places they overlap a little bit, but generally they kind of do different things for the most part. And you will find things that only one of them does or the other one doesn't do. I think Monkey Bread's probably a larger set of things it does, but it's more of a paid product, and Base Elements is essentially a free plugin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
The first time I even got interested in Monkey Bread, it was because of your video on it. And Chris, you hosted Christian Smith a long time ago, one of the first ones, and I really took a look at it at that point, and then I was impressed,
No, he comes on the show all the time. He's always got great stuff. In fact, what we run into problems all the time, things we can't solve.
Right.
And his product almost always already does it. And so all I have to do is educate myself on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's obviously one of those kind of deals. All right. So keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah. So the question, would just, once you understand a few things, I had put together a whole website that shows people, let me just go into my email right here. What happened was I put together for people who really want a detailed understanding of how to set this up if they wanted to use it or just get creative with it. I have no claim to it or whatever. It's actually provided somewhat by the Claris people, and then I was just showing what I had did in the forum because I felt it could be helpful to many. So I had put together this website. Right here is the website. And so this website, when you actually go to it, it can show you how to, configure. Oops, I moved away from it right here. So I'll, give the link, or I had gave the link in the forum. But so if you go to this website, you have like, a step-by-step on how I configured it and how I made the font and things of that nature. And so it actually explains just about every piece of it in great detail, so you can understand if you wanted to try implementing exactly like me or some type of other creative ways and that type of thing. Because I think the package that I worked from Claris is something that you can really get creative with, and there's a lot of options that you actually can get to, if you go to this website right here, it is claris.js.org. And they show a bunch of ways that they have it pre-configured. None of these ways for me work because most of these ways where they show you the demo, they'll show you a demo, and all of them don't start with the color picker in view. You have to click on it, click on the swatch, which could work for some people, the way they want to, create their application. But for me, I wanted it always available the second I click in a FileMaker field. So that would be the equivalent of launching this web page. So the color picker would have to be available. So yeah. And then they give you all the resources to download the package that I worked from. And, which is not going to be anything working. I want people to understand, if they're watching this, it's not going to be any working example that you can use right away in FileMaker. That's where my page comes in, where I'm showing you how to, I configured it and got it to work and things like that. And the other great thing about this is it's a piece of JavaScript that doesn't require a web server, doesn't require Node.js, doesn't require anything. It can just run from a local directory on a Mac or PC.
Which is perfect. That makes life so much simpler.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because the fewer external dependencies you have on your solution, the better. How are we doing? We have questions from people, Margaret?
We do have questions, actually, and funny gifts, but that's Discord for you. So first question, will this work on iOS? It probably won't, right? Because of the font? ?
The font is going to be challenging on iOS. So I'm wondering if the Alex Web custom function, the scalable version, because like I said, the font isn't the only thing that it needs to pick the main thing that the Claris package does is help you pick the hex package. So so what you can do with that as a color, the font relates to the visual representation of it in your application. So I'm sure aspects of it will work, but the font is going to be challenging in iOS because I don't think it can support the native type of fonts the same way.
Okay, next question. Let me know if you have a follow-up to that, Ruben.
Well, let me back up a question on that. So do you need to manually install the font on Windows and Mac to make this go?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
You do. Yeah, you do.
Okay. So you drag and drop that on a Mac. I haven't done that lately because these days when you buy a Mac or you get one with the operating system, it comes with a lot of fonts to the point where I don't feel like I have 5 fonts and I need more. It comes with like 50 or more, way more than I possibly need. So on Windows, is it easiest? I haven't done a font installation. I use Windows now because these helicopter guys are Windows people, but is Windows a font installation very difficult? Is it drag and drop? How does that work?
Oh, no. I can even show you. So if I open up a Windows folder and I let's go to right here where I have it. So the package that I give in the link, if you just take that, so if we go to it right there, and if you go into that, you'll see when you unzip it, you'll see the 2 fonts. And all you do with a font in Windows is right click and you go install. It's even easier on the Mac. You just open it and at the bottom you'll have a little button that gives you the option to add it. But on Windows you do install. I'm not going to do it because it's going to yell at me that it's already installed. And on this one you would just right click and go install. That's all you have to do.
So the font comes with your download, which is great.
The font is right in there. This is the extracted version of the download. So what you have in the download is you have the color picker using the Monkey Bread software plugin. You have the color or the version using the base elements software plugin, and then you have the 2 fonts, and then you have a PDF that I wrote just giving some helpful instructions that'll be along the lines of what I do in the videos, just to give a little bit more written instruction and detail, that type of way.
Okay.
Next question. This is David. I'm going to ask your question at last because it's a little off topic. So Lynn, why do you write the HTML to a file instead of setting it directly into the web viewer?
The reason for that is because the file in this case is dependent on other JavaScript libraries, being the Claris package. So I'll show you an example of that. So if you look at now, I do have mine in a web server, but it doesn't have to be like I said. But if I open up,
that's a really good question, by the way. I was wondering about that, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, very good question. And then so if I go into the directory where my web server is, here is the HTML file, and in that actual directory. So inside there, they have a bunch of stuff in their package because it's a very well written JavaScript library that becomes the Claris color picker, which is the one I give instructions to download from their website right here, and you can go to the GitHub page right here and you would download it right here. So when you download this package, it's a very well, I would say, just looking at it, wrote package, which has a bunch of, prototypes, and that it refers to and things like that. So the dependencies make it where if you tried to write that from the FileMaker web viewer, it can still link back to it, but it just seemed like a better example to have it, because I actually tested it some in a browser first, which is not it's not necessary. You don't have to do that, but it just makes sometimes easy to just determine what's really going on before you actually put it. And then so writing it into the WebViewer real time, that actually can work, but I just found a way, to do it with the text file, because that way it's always available. And is there anything else? I could be missing something about why I actually did it at this moment. But if I think of it, I'll say it,
Well, one thing about it is that if you can see the text file, you can always triage that, because a lot of times you're trying to figure out what you build something like on that black helicopter, working on that black helicopter, and you're trying to, it's something, you do something and you're looking to find out why it didn't work, but you're chasing your tail trying to figure out where it failed or why it failed. And with a text file, you have kind of a smoking gun per se. So you can look at that text file, either the text file is right or wrong. You can definitively look at that point in time. Whereas a lot of the times in the interaction between FileMaker and the web viewer, you assume you know what's in there, but maybe not entirely. So I would just simply say that as a troubleshooting tool, writing to a text file and then opening that up is a great tip. I like that.
That is exactamundo. That also is something that I've considered in the past. Yep, that's
this is me clapping for you. By the way, if you see me clapping, that's me clapping for you.
That's exactamundo. Yep. So that's why.
Cool.
All right.
Let me know if that answered your question, Lynn. We've got another question from Lynn. Will this run offline? I think you have Google APIs in the HTML ?
I don't know what you mean by the Google HTML APIs, but
Are you referencing any Google code in your
no. There's no Google code. Unless they're deep in the Claris package, and I didn't see them, but not really necessary. It will run offline. That's what I was talking about. So that also is fits right into where I was talking about how you don't need a web server. It can run in a local directory, because it doesn't need to be connected to online at all. So it can run.
I mean, it's kind of hard for us to test this right now, because for test it offline, we have to disconnect him from the show. But yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got you. Right.
But download it and then disconnect your computer from the internet and see what happens. That's the ultimate way of testing it, right? So
yes, definitely. Yeah. So it'll run offline for sure. That's what I meant by it'll run in a regular web, in a regular directory. It's not a web server, and it'll just run. So.
That's perfect. Sure. I love it. I love that kind of robust. It's what I call robustification. You robustified your solution. It's robust. And when someone does something dumb with it, like shuts off the internet, it keeps going, keeps running.
And FileMaker's WebViewer is at the core of that, because just like Firefox or Chrome or any modern browser, Safari, anything like that, they're designed to run with HTML files that have the right basically style, that don't need server type code, and they can run things locally. So the FileMaker WebViewer is no different.
Perfect. All right. Next question, Margaret. Do you have another question?
We do. This one is a little off topic, but I'll fire it from David anyway. Are you using Docker Desktop for FM Server?
I'm using Docker Desktop to serve my files, but I'm not using it for FM Server. I'm just using it for, serving, files to a web viewer. Sorry.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Docker Desktop, so I just blanked out on what you just talked about.
Yeah, so Docker Desktop is just a way, it's right here, if that's what he's asking about. He saw the icon probably. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is it's just a way to run a web server, and it is really a fabulous way to quickly get one up and running, with different type of packages that you can grab right offline. Or
so this is a virtualized, so you have virtualization running on your local computer there? Is that what we have?
Yes, and exactly virtualization at one level, Richard, but the real name for what this is containerization. So yes.
That's right. I hear that word. I will be honest with everyone. I'm not a qualified astronaut, and I'm at the same time, I'm not a qualified container Docker person, right? So for me, it's all new.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So virtualization was the first stop, and it relates in FileMaker. It was very helpful to run web servers and things on the web and other stuff that would have dependencies like a Java machine or stuff like that.
Right.
And when it connects to these microservices and things like that. But now containerization is the faster, more efficient way to do that, and easier for people to configure it and keep them for later use. Yep. So yes, I am. Was his name David?
Yeah. Yes. That was David. Yep.
David. Yes,
okay.
I was.
We have about 3 or 4 Davids. Which David was that?
David Angel.
David Angel. Well, we're going to keep going with our demo here. What's next?
So I guess at this point, after showing like the configurations and talking about the ways that it was actually laid out, I'll talk a little bit more about the layout. And the layout is just that. And so, with the script in relation to the layout in relation to the script. So the scripts, if I go into the script workspace, you'll see that. Let me make this bigger. Let's drag this over. You'll see that the values that it's actually creating, to write the file are in that script, and then the color text value is when it takes, the actual it actually takes this text FileMaker text color function, and it actually writes RGB values in there to convert the hex value into something that it can use.
I ran into that the other day. I had a problem with that. I ended up just trying to solve a different way because I couldn't figure out how to quickly, within a minute or two, convert it from RGB to text.
Right. So, and what I do is I use the custom function, that I use. Let's go to it right quick. The custom function that I use is this one right here, color convert hex. It's on Brian Dunning's
I could have
site.
used that the other day. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you take a look at it, what it does is it takes values and it gives them in like a list form so that you can actually, and it gives it, red, green, and blue, and then it can take, the values in actually RGB or decimal, and then outputs in RGB or decimal, and then it takes the hex value in the output format. So the first argument is the hex value, and the next one in my case would be RGB, but you also can do decimal as an output format, or and that type of thing. So then, and that's how it actually comes up with the colors it needs for these, because they don't take the hex value directly, they take the RGB value. Both of those use that, but the hex value is useful to always convert to an RGB value. So this is a simple layout, like a dinky FileMaker. It's not, I have things that I use in a more let's call it nicer layouts and things like that where I need to pick colors, and even for HTML content, pick a foreground and a background color. That's why the idea of an all color came about. But some of the applications with this are just that, like, so in this little simple file, I wanted to be able to take a word, like in this case bears, and when I say replace this bears, it uses that text format function and replaces it with the chosen color. So if I restore it and I go to another color, I might not have the FileMaker the plugin running at the moment properly. So if I pick this color and I go replace, you see it replaces it to this purple color. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, and then well, what happens is I tend to have a lot of things, because like Richard spoke about the creative side of FileMaker, that we didn't have a way to pick a color up until a certain point. So one of those files is right here.
I like this demo, by the way. This is great. I have to take this apart, figure how I want to use it.
Yeah, and so what happened was it was built up because the first color picker where I didn't have the alt option was this. Then I showed it right next to the one that actually has the alt option, where you can actually change the color. But then I showed it with the other option where, using a different way than what I came up with. And that was that custom function by Alex Zuev, where he actually creates the 1 pixel GIF that let me show that, as a matter of fact, so people understand that, because that's not my invention or anything like that, but it's a very cool way to work, because so what happens is this actual container is filled up by a custom function by I'll show it here, by Alex Zuev, where he he takes a 1 pixel GIF and fills it in a container. And maybe at first that's not super intuitive until you understand that you can take that GIF and scale it to any size with the options in the FileMaker layout options right here, where if you select the folder and you go down to it and you not the folder, the field, and you come right here and you say, what do you want to do with, how do you want that to format? And you say enlarge image to fit. So it'll take that 1 pixel GIF and it's going to spread it. So this can be made as big as you want it to be. So if I just fool around with it right here and I just even go that big, which my font couldn't go that big, and I go exit layout and I save it, you see? So you can make it that big. Actually what you're looking at with my font is about as big as I was able to get it via a font, because FileMaker, if you look at that in the layout, I'll put the other one back. And the biggest I could get the font to show for my purposes was about 72 points, in terms of a font. See, I couldn't get it to go any bigger than that.
So I'm just trying to understand, and I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to so why did you do the font again? I mean, what problem were you trying to solve
So
doing
in terms of just it being very like fast and efficient, I figured that the font would just be a good example, because the first time I tried a font, I was blown away. The first time that I, worked with the the scaling of the graphics. So now here's the thing. The font for me became something where when I saw Alex Web example, I was like, this is kind of like, something where, that was already a way to do some sort of it. But there are complications with doing it the container way. And I'm going to show you that in another file. And
yes,
so what happens
do that.
is,
Yeah,
so what happens is what we'll do is we'll go right here and I will open a file right here. I'm just on another screen real quick. Bear with me.
So this is where I interrupt and you get your demo ready. But I love the idea that we run into the wall, we have a problem. And then FileMaker, because people are so creative with it, they come up with different ways of getting around the issue. Of course, when you get around the issue, you might have its own limitations. So having more than one way to solve the problem is always excellent. And I love that. And so serial number is too old. Yeah,
I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, it wasn't doing that days ago. I don't know why. Maybe it's too old right now. I don't know. But either way, I don't know why it's actually doing that. But either way, so what happens is the thing about this, if I go to window and I go to animate. So this is a solution that we use here relating to content we build for people that relates to hardware design and things like that, where we use callouts, and callouts are simply just that. They're a way to do something like what you see here. The screen resolution is stretching it so much where, it's harder to see, but that's a callout. And if that's one that's pointing, configured on the page and it's right down. So the next one would be right up if we had to point from this direction of the page, right? So up to a certain point, we didn't even have a way to see the color we were creating before the color picker. Now this is going to look like something like what's going on in this, but I'll make it clear. Now the only other problem is this relates to Adobe Illustrator, and I don't know if this screen resolution Adobe Illustrator will run. Let me just launch it right now anyway and make sure we can open it, because this relates to what we do in Adobe Illustrator.
Well, you can try. So real quick, for those of you who don't know Illustrator, Photoshop, for the most part, is about dealing with bitmap graphics, right? And so it's every little pixel, right, as a general rule. Adobe Illustrator is all about drawing art or doing design with vectors for the most part. That's what it's really good at. And so that's where you can have some very sophistication. So people would always buy Photoshop and Illustrator to go together because they complement each other, but really Illustrator focuses on the vector artwork, the scale artwork like that. But Photoshop is more about bitmap manipulation for the most part. So.
And before I even get to Illustrator, you'll see where I'm going with this about the two different, what Richard asked a good question about the two different ways to work with it, because they both have their upsides and downsides. So what happens is if I come right here and let's say I just change this, let's just change this to 90 and I go, no, this is not the best design solution. We work with it the way we work with it. So you have to make it, and then it changes the text, and then you say full, and then it generates it. But so up to now, all we were left with looking at was this version, and the color. Now we have a way to see the color we're going to get. In this case, it's going to be like this yellowish or greenish color, right? Or this greenish color. Yeah. Okay. So, but it's still not on the screen visual for us. But if I switch to this version of a layout and I say this one, so now, by choosing the color I'll show you the layout in a second, by clicking here, and the screen is a little bit small. So the resolution is keeping it from seeing everything at once. But as I drag around, you notice you can see the change in the color. Oh,
that's nice. Real-time feedback.
And the way that was accomplished was so edit the layout, and with the limitation of that 72-point size, I had to stack the color chips. If I move this, I had to stack the color chips seamlessly together. You see what I'm saying? I had to stack them and try to get them.
If Nick Hunter was here, this is where we start yelling, it's a hack, right?
Right, so, but exactly.
It's a hack, right? But but that's how you solve problems sometimes, right?
Yep. So what that is a see-through PNG on top of color chips stacked behind each other. Now, there's a slight little thing if you're if you're a stickler for it, if you really look closely at it, you can see there's a couple of little lines there that break it up. But at least right now, I was pleased that I can see what color my call out is going to be that I'm distributing to a graphic program.
Can I ask a question? Because I guarantee at least half the people here don't know about this because this is kind of a very old technique. Are you using FileMaker to directly talk to Illustrator to feed artwork and images into Illustrator? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, because it goes into what you talked about a minute ago, Richard, that scalable vector graphic.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right.
this
So
is going
time
to
out.
generate, yes, this is going to generate a scalable vector graphic that can easily be imported into Illustrator. Once Illustrator gets that scalable vector graphic, it's not even going to know it's not an Illustrator, created piece of artwork, and it's going to scale it and be able to.
So let me go back. Let me go back. There used to be there used to be a lot of what made Apple and made tons of money for Apple was what they called pre-press or this whole idea of people getting laser printers and rolling their own stuff back. And this is like the late 80s, right? The Mac, the first laser printer, all that kind of stuff. And so what ended up coming out was people were using PageMaker and Quark and these other things were doing paper design layout. And that was really before the internet. Now everything is designed and laid out and shows on the internet. That being said, for companies that would do like catalogs, like giant printed catalogs, they would actually have FileMaker with a bunch of the data, like information about what's on the pages and things like that. That would be in FileMaker. You'd have Illustrator or Quark or InDesign or whatever the hell they were using. And InDesign's web, I think. But this typically printed. You're building on the computer layouts that will result in printed pages, not web pages. And so the problem was like if you had a giant Sears catalog or some sort of catalog, you'd have 500 pages and there's a lot of stuff on there. You'd have that in FileMaker, and FileMaker would be using Apple events or some sort of capability talking back and forth to the page design. And that's what he's doing here. He's got FileMaker containing data that he determines that he wants to manage in FileMaker because FileMaker is great at managing data, but it's not a pre-press design tool, or really it's not a replacement for Photoshop, it's not a replacement for Illustrator or Quark or any sort of things that have been around for a long time. It's great for data management. So the idea is that FileMaker is talking to Illustrator back and forth. So that is what he's doing here. It's kind of ugly because this is you're seeing they always say that things you never want to see is a company reorganization, right? And you don't ever want to see how sausage is made, right? So, because it's really bad for the pig, right? And out comes sausage on the other side. So this is what is the underside. This is the sausage making. He's injecting bits and pieces together, building these graphical elements like this blue graphic over here. And it has a couple vertical artifacts or lines in it, but I'm willing to bet those lines aren't in the final file that goes to Illustrator, right? Illustrator is clean with that, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So it's FileMaker creates the version that Illustrator will look like an Illustrator piece of artwork. It'll
look beautiful, but it's a preview in FileMaker. But the whole idea was to be able to dynamically change the color, which is the genesis, or it's the impetus is the word I'm looking for. Why he did what he did. Why he was looking. It's because he's trying to drive real-time feedback as FileMaker feeds data to Illustrator. So that's the whole. Most people don't know about that. This is old school shit, right? It really is.
And also, along with lines of what Richard said, that's super powerful is that if you notice, so the reason why this even existed first, let me get another piece of text. I'm gonna go online, just grab a piece of text, like from something like this from Zoom. So if this was the call out, if this was what we're pulling the call out, and I go Control C, if I come into FileMaker and I put that, come into FileMaker and I put that right here. And right here, and I put the new text. So Illustrator at the time when we were working with it, where we needed this, it wasn't good at keeping the text uniform, meaning like kind of even. You see what I'm saying? It would break the paragraph and the call out would look all wacky with one line and then only like one word on another line. So what this does for us first, before we even get to the color, it generates through this script a uniform set of
clean text. Let's clean the text.
That looks like a nice clean box. And so when I go it generated it. It generated the text with all of, and that's SVG as Richard was referring to. That's SVG wrapped around the text, which makes it perfect for FileMaker to turn into a graphic. And then when I go full, it actually generates that so that it can actually become the Illustrator graphic. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now I can color that whichever color I choose. So back to what I was saying that relates to the other question Richard brought up about why even bother with the font was because, so here right now, so you notice when I switch it, this is my match field right here. and that's how it chooses bottom left. That's the direction this is referring with the match field, the way it's pointing to. But if I go to this other version that uses the container method, which is great as well. It's great to have access to it. And what you're looking at in the layout is you're looking at a container behind the see-through text. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So that's actually a container right there. That's actually behind the actual, that's the transparent text in the container, and then the container with the color behind it. So if I come out of that and I go exit layout and I go don't save. And so what happens is if I go to the color picker and I start moving it around to select a color, so it's moving it around to select the color. It's a little bit more graphic intensive. That's why it made that beep. But either way, so if I choose that color, watch what happens when I switch it. See, a container for FileMaker's way that it works will always come to the front. So it just, when I played with it a little bit, I wasn't with certain applications for it I have. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so, yes.
Yeah. This is a little subtle little issues that you're working on what we call usability, right? So this is the UX or user experience, and having a giant black box is not going to cut it for user experience. So
exactly,
here we are with FileMaker solving the problem, doing a better job. I feel like it's a commercial, a Claris International commercial.
Right,
Would you like to solve problems in the world? Would you like to be a powerful wizard? Use FileMaker. Well, no, wait a minute. Claris Pro. Use Claris Pro.
So that was one of the reasons why the font, became something that was just another option, another way to get things done. And I think I'll typically wind up choosing the font method in most cases, but having the other one, as a tool as well is a great thing. So this actually, what it does is, now Illustrator is going to be a little quirky, I think, at this resolution, but we'll try. So I'll open something from Illustrator, and let's say open this Illustrator. So let's open this. What this does is versions of this. And you'll see right here, those are the call outs that it can generate. You see what I'm saying? So so those call outs like this is for things that we're actually, it's all red because it's missing the fonts. But let me import the one I just made and see if I can get that one to show up properly. So that one is going to be, yes. So right now, usually I have this automated, but I reset my PC not too long ago, so I don't have the buttons in FileMaker to bring it in, so I can just drag it in. But you'll see when I drag in this, you see what I'm dragging in the SVG. That's what I just created, and that is still missing the font. Excuse me, but give me 1 second. I'm gonna install the font real quick. Excuse me, because I just reset my machine, so I had to install those fonts. But that is installing fonts. You see, so see it quickly installs 16 fonts, and now it works. You see what I'm saying? So now when I bring the call out in, you see what I typed in FileMaker, and then so that's what I typed in FileMaker, and it was
yeah. So you're using FileMaker as a data feeding or management tool on the back end to drive Illustrator, which is awesome.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it'll bring in the call out. It'll bring in the call out exactly like how and then now it's an Illustrator graphic, and then that's the power of it. That type of thing. Yep. And so either way.
What else we got? Anything else?
So the main way that I wanted to work with the FileMaker color picker was to be able to pick a color in terms of like working with TinyMCE, the actual text, the text editor. The main thing is being able to pick the hex and be able to apply it to something where you actually bring it in and use it for the, the purpose of having your color properly chosen.
Yeah. And so the sample file marker is a link that we have published to people. We're publishing that link for Mr.
I published that link. I will republish the link again.
Good job, Chris Johnston. So so you work in-house doing other stuff. So you're not really available if someone wants to hire you to do FileMaker stuff, right?
I'm not saying that. I just haven't been doing it in a while. Like I haven't been working on FileMaker solutions for clients for a number of years now. Mostly the stuff that we do is stuff that we do for management and things of our own work, what we do with programming and web development and that type of thing.
If someone wants to reach out to you and catch you, how do they contact you?
My email, chris@pctechtv.com.
chris@pctechtv.com.
Yeah.
All righty.
And any FileMaker person from the forum or whatever is welcome to communicate, ask anything. I'll always be glad to help.
All right. Awesome.
Yep. Nope. Just a lot of people saying this is really cool, and thank you very much for coming on, which I second.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad, like I said, glad to be here with you guys because
No,
y'all's
it's awesome.
content is always out of sight.
Well, it's helpful, but it's a lot of people helping and bring it together. So it's a big group effort, and you're just another piece of that group now, Chris. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Yep. So, all right.
Cool. Let me
right.
see if I can get the closing button to
All
work.
right, everyone. We'll see you Monday. See you Monday. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!